All righty. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, our guests, as well as participants, Melissa and Dr. Snee. Thank you for, again, taking some time out of your Friday to talk a little bit about Aspen Dental and what we've kind of tailored this to be in a very casual format is really, a day in the life of an endodontist working in Aspen Dental offices. And the theme of our videos, AMA, is Ask Me Anything. So that's really what it is an Ask Me Anything with Dr. Snee here, so you can ask all your clinical questions or operational questions that you may have. So to get things started, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Ed Lunam, and I am a part of the academic and industry relations team with Aspen Dental Management. And I started with Aspen roughly 1 month ago. So as I am, pun intended, cutting my teeth with Aspen Dental here. So excited to be here and talk a little bit more. And myself, I'm going to learn as well. I'm certain of that. So, and then I've got my partner on the academic team here, who you all heard a little bit, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself if you would, Melissa?
Sure. So I'm Melissa Van Dusky. I am here a little bit longer than you, Ed. I've been with Aspen since November. So, I'm no longer rookie status on the academic team, but I work with the specialists at Aspen. So I work with the endodontist and the oral surgeons, just kind of being the brand ambassador for Aspen out there in the residency programs, kind of helping you all out with making career decisions. And happy to be on. And
great.
That's it.
Dr. Snee?
You want me to just introduce myself, what I've been through since residency, essentially?
Sure. A little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you like doing when you're not doing root canals and retreats, and your path to, maybe from residency, your path to Aspen, if you would, please.
Sounds good. So I grew up around Pittsburgh, about 40 minutes outside the city, and when it came time for dental school, that was the closest school and had in-state tuition. So I went to Pitt for 4 years. Pretty early on, realized that I wanted to do endodontics, and was fortunate enough to be able to just continue right through at University of Pittsburgh, just finish everything up. After that, I stayed in Pennsylvania for a couple years doing private practice for my first 2 years out. And it was okay, but after 2 years, I decided I wanted to maybe see what else was out there, and that's when I got involved with Aspen, and I've been with Aspen for about 2 years now. And for me, I've had a much better, more enjoyable time working in the at Aspen environment than my time in private practice, for a couple of reasons. I'm sure we'll get into some of it as we go here today.
Okay, great. Thanks for that intro. And just a quick bit of information. So the company that Melissa and I work for, Aspen Dental Management, we are part of a DSO, Dental Services Organization, and we provide all the business support services and back end, in the event you don't know, for all clinicians that are working in Aspen Dental offices. So everything from the legal, the real estate, the construction, recruiting, finance, accounting, ordering of supplies, all the very important non-clinical business components that help grow and build a practice. So those are just some of the services that ADMI does to support all the clinicians within Aspen Dental. But if you only have one takeaway, or one of the few takeaways from tonight's discussion, is know that at ADMI, we don't do anything clinically. We don't get involved in the treatments or the treatment planning or anything. You absolutely, as a clinician, have complete clinical autonomy, which Dr. Snee will talk about. But we're the subject matter experts maybe on the business side of things, whereas as you certainly, as whether you're an endo resident or whatnot, you're an expert in endodontics, and that's what you get to do. And that's the partnership that's brought ADMI to grow with Aspen Dental and to become a leader in the DSO space. So shifting into just a little talk about tonight and a day in the life of an endodontist. Dr. Snee got some questions that came in, but if you want to just start off and just talk a little bit about some of those resources that you're supported with in terms of specifically equipment. I know one of the questions often get asked are talking about microscopes and just all the resources that are there to support you inside an Aspen Dental office. So if you wouldn't mind just talking about the equipment and the resources that are there to support you.
Yeah, I feel supported pretty much anyway, but clinically with the equipment, in my opinion, I use top of the line stuff. I have a really nice global microscope that if I were to start my own practice, which I have no intentions of doing ever, but if I were to start my own practice, I'd buy a global microscope, the same exact one that I use every day with Aspen. I use all Dentsply rotary files, mostly Dentsply hand files, BC sealer, and I've done that from day one with Aspen. Essentially, when I got started, I got to order the equipment that I wanted to use and just put together a list of everything that I had been using in private practice, and that's what we purchased, and it was as simple as that. As I work and I figure out new things that's going to allow me to provide better dental care, I just order it. I've never had a problem with ordering. I have some hands-on, I basically work with my assistants to figure out what I need for a month or for a week, and then we just get it, and it shows up within a couple days, and it's a really smooth, easy process.
Great.
I use rotary files, single use. I'm sure some endodontists in Aspen reuse them, but for me, I use it once, then it's done. And one of the nice things about working for a big company like Aspen is that we get products at a cheaper rate, and so that allows us to use top of the line equipment at a reasonable cost.
Yes, the economies of scale, purchasing in bulk, and able to pass those on price breaks onto your patients. So, excellent information. A question that came in while we started talking about equipment and what you're supported with, and it's a common question. It's a great question. Is do you have the use of the CBCT in every office?
With where I'm at, I have it in I think 6 of the 8 offices that I'm supporting. They're geographically close together, and so I'm able to basically just send a patient over maybe 10 minutes away for a cone beam if necessary.
Okay, and that's actually a big initiative with ADMI is getting CBCT machines out into every office in the not too distant future. So I think you said 6 out of the 8 offices. So it's certainly a high percentage. So we're getting there to where you have that access for CBCT in every office.
Yeah, I think every office that doesn't have it, that I just have 2, and like I said, it doesn't really bother me because I can send the patients when I need it. But I think they both are already have a date within the next couple months where the cone beams are arriving. So that works out pretty well.
Yeah, that seems to fall in line. Within 2 months, within the standard of care of what endodontists are looking for. So we're getting close. Aspen Dental is getting close to having that there. Another question that's coming in seems that you got an active group tonight. Thank you. To all of our attendees asking a lot of questions. Do you pay for your files? Oh, it's 2 questions here, Doc. Do you pay for your files? And then another question that's come in is how many patients do you treat in a day? How many emergency cases? How many consults? So a typical day.
Yeah.
Asking about a schedule, basically.
Yeah, it's all good questions. So somebody pays for the files. I don't pay for them. How it works is I basically get, as far as I get paid more or less on collection, but I don't have materials don't come out of my pay or budget. What was the other part to that question? What else were you asking, Ed?
Been asked how many patients do you treat in a day, which includes emergency cases and as well as consults.
Yeah. So Scheduling to me is like my baby. It's the most important thing in the world to me because I can fix any problem clinically. If it's a hard case, that's fine. If it's an easy case, that's fine. When the patient's in the chair, if it's a tough patient to handle, I can handle all that. I can't handle, if enough patients show up and when. So that was actually one of the reasons why I've been much happier at Aspen than in a private practice, because my schedules were slower. At Aspen right now, I probably do, say, 6 to 7 root canals a day, but I've tailor-made it to be exactly what I want. I don't like to rush. I book an hour and a half for every molar case and an hour for every premolar or anterior, which, depending on what point you are in your career, that may seem slow to you. But I've also settled into a situation where I'm doing all of my own core buildups after endo, because I just believe in that continuity of care and getting that core buildup in while the rubber dam's on. So I'm basically doing start to finish treatment. And I've worked with my referring docs, and they're all very comfortable and very on board and happy with that situation. At some of the offices, as soon as my core buildup's done, they do the crown prep right away. So what used to maybe take 2-3 appointments for the patient is compressed into one. It's very efficient for the patient. It's very efficient for the practice model. So the long answer is, that's the long answer. I probably could do 8 or 9 root canals a day under a different scenario. But I don't like to see 2 patients at a time. I like to see a patient, walk them through the process from start to finish. I'm a snob about high quality care, so that's probably keeps me from moving too fast. Consults, I purposefully tell the offices that I don't like to see very many, and for the most part, they agree and honor and respect that. In my opinion, I don't think that a lot of cases truly warrant a consult for us. I think that either it needs a root canal, in case we can book for treatment. And I've told offices that if there's a very head scratcher case, to please send that to an outside endodontist, and they agree.
So you mentioned at the start of that, when you were providing details on the schedule and everything, you said scheduling is very important to you. So you were able to sit down with the office manager and sounds like maybe the owner docs or the referring docs, right? Because they're the ones they got to know the fact that you're right down the hall from them and you're building those relationships. That's absolutely had to help in the whole scheduling you for success. Would you agree?
Yeah. I wrote up a Word document for basically how to schedule for me, and I sent that out to the offices, and that was that. So it, occasionally when there's a new person, like at the front desk, then every once in a while there'll be a hiccup here and there, but that's just anywhere that you work. So, unfortunately, the reality is that no front desk person in the world is going to know how to schedule you better than you would schedule yourself. So that's a growing process in the career, understanding that getting 90% of the way there is a big win.
Yes, indeed. Another question that's coming in from our live active stream, with you talking about your schedule and the amount of patients that you're seeing in a day, question that came in was hours. How many hours are you working a day? Are they the same 8 to 5s or 9s to 6 every day? Talk a little bit about the literally hours
Sure.
that you're in the office.
Yeah. So some of the things you're going to hear me say are probably not cookie cutter, because that's not how I like to practice. Most endodontists probably aren't doing all of their own core buildups. But, I'll start by saying one of the things that I absolutely love about Aspen is that I have felt extremely supported to make my practice exactly what I wanted. So when I said I wanted to do core buildups, everybody was on board. Everybody was very happy to work through that transition with me. Similarly to scheduling, If you do the math, hour and a half, see 7 patients a day, like on average, there's going to be some long days in there. I love working about 16 long days a month, 10 to 12-hour days, which sounds crazy to some people, I'm sure. But that is so much more fun for me than to do, a regular 8-hour day, 20 of those a month or 21 of those a month. I just like having days of my life totally free. And Aspen has been extremely accommodating for that. Before the world went crazy, what I would do is I would, obviously referring to coronavirus, I would probably really compress my month into the first 2 weeks and then just travel for like the last week or 2 of the month. And it just really worked out. You just can never find that freedom in private practice if you're working in private practice, unless you find an extremely accommodating owner who's looking for a part-time associate. For the most part, you're married to that practice. And I provide excellent care, but I also enjoy a lot of freedom, which is just the best of all worlds for me.
Great. So you've talked about some of any other procedures, the root canals, retreats. Talk a little bit about any other types of procedures that you're doing. You mentioned not so much on the consults, but just all the procedures, if you would.
Yeah. So I do retreats. Very selectively. Some endodontists at Aspen do retreats. Some endodontists at Aspen don't. It's about working with what you're comfortable with. In some fashion, depending on where you're at in your career and where you're at in the United States, like the office that you're working in, it might not make sense to tackle many retreats. If you're fresh in your career and you're two-stepping, a lot of retreats, which is extremely reasonable, and you're in an area where you're coming to an office once a month, that isn't necessarily the best situation, because then to do a retreatment, it's going to be a month-long, a couple months-long process sometimes. I've just actually very recently gotten to the point where I'm doing more and more. Since we do have cone beams in every office, and I kind of like to challenge myself, so I'm taking on the more difficult cases. But again, it's like, for example, I don't have an ultrasonic only because I don't feel like ordering it, and I don't think I need one, and I don't want to carry it from office to office. Not that I do, but I don't want to give my assistants one more thing to carry from office to office. So I don't have an ultrasonic. If you feel like that you would need an ultrasonic to do retreats, then you have to decide, do you want that, or maybe do you not want to tackle those kind of cases. I figured out how to drill out every post in the world. So, if you ever want to pick my brain on that one day, it's a different topic of conversation. But yeah, 2 years, no ultrasonic, no worries. But so we do retreats. I do retreats. I enjoy those. I don't do apicoectomies. In my opinion, when I look at cases, I just very rarely see a case where I'm thinking, apico from start to finish. But that's how I was trained. I was in a retreat heavy program, believed in that being the first line for most cases when you have endodontic treatment that's failing. And that's kind of similar. I don't feel like it warrants me dragging the equipment to do apicoectomies around from office to office when it's such an infrequently used procedure. I maybe see 1 or 2 indications for that a month, and I'm just very happy to refer that out. I do extract teeth a lot, which again, I'm a little bit of an eccentric one, but a lot of times I get patients numb, and if they're if it's unrestorable, if it's a cracked tooth, or poor prognosis, or anything that we see indicating a poor prognosis. I like oral surgery. I like a variety to my day, and that's something that, again, I'm very supported with the offices. I just tell the referring doc, hey, this isn't a good prognosis case. Do you want me to go ahead and just take it out while the patient's numb? The answer is always yes. So, I mean, the model allows me to deliver that service to patients as well.
Yeah, the model and the clinical autonomy, it sounds like,
Yeah.
that you
I have an
there.
extreme amount of clinical autonomy. I have more clinical autonomy than I would have in any other model.
So a couple other questions that have come in that correspond to what what you've been talking about, Dr. Snee, but this is clinical. So I'm just going to relay the question here, and it might be redundant, but there are sometimes disagreements between what is restorable versus non-restorable. Do your general dentist agree with your clinical judgment?
I would say always. When I was in private practice, I felt like, keep in mind, sample size of one, this is my experience. Other people may have had excellent experiences, and I had a decent experience in private practice. But when I was in private practice, I felt like I had about 4 or 5 different bosses during the day. The person who signed my checks, the owner dentist, that was my boss. The referring dentist was my boss. I felt like the patient was my boss. I felt like the front desk lady was my boss. At Aspen, I don't know. I don't know who my boss is. I mean, I do great work. I never hear anything, but I do feel like I have that freedom. If I have a disagreement with a patient, if they want to do something that I think is stupid, I tell them that I think it's stupid in a very nice way. But then I'm supported by the referring docs. I'm supported by the front office, but the office managers tend to be very strong, very good at navigating situations. And I've never had a conflict with a referring doctor, honestly. It's a really nice environment where it's a partnership. I mean, we are all on the same team. So when I do good care, it's good for them. It's good for their crowns. It's good for their treatment plans. When I make money, the offices that they're in make money. On the flip side, for example, I believe very, very strongly when cracked teeth have a poor prognosis to get them out. I personally, and in the literature that I've looked at, a lot of those teeth are problematic, and I believe in very predictable treatment for patients. That's what I want for patients. I don't want them to have a root canal, a filling, and a crown, and then to have a problem, a year down the line. That's a nightmare scenario for me. And since we're all on the same team, if that happens, we're all part of that bad experience together. So I would be, the patient would be, the referring dentist would be. And so one of the things I think is part of my job, which I take very seriously, is identifying cracked teeth and teeth with poor prognosis and shutting it down. And I would say wholeheartedly the docs that I work with are very appreciative of that, because you don't have to practice dentistry for very long to figure out that you're able to avoid those kind of situations and work with happy patients who are getting predictable treatment. I mean, that's just in everybody's best interest. And if I ever stray too much, try to reroute me, Ed.
You're talking clinically, from a clinical perspective, Doc, and I'm not trained to go there, and and your audience is mainly clinicians, but I understand.
Okay.
Reeling it in. But no, it's great. I mean, we're questions are just coming from what you're talking. This good dialogue that's just flowing. And I think I know the answer to this, because you mentioned the word freedom a couple of times. But do you have the freedom of doing single appointment versus 2 appointments based on your clinical judgment? Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I write down how long I want for a procedure. I'm sure somebody somewhere would like it if I did molar endo in an hour and 15 minutes instead of an hour and a half, but I've never heard a bad word about it. And so I say exactly what I want, and that's what I get. And yeah, single versus two appointments. Where I'm at right now, I probably do about, and most of you guys will likely get there. I probably do about 99% of my initial endos and single appointment. When I was in residency, I said I would never do that. But, you know, after you do something about 5 or 6 or 10,000 times, it just really speeds up. So, I mean, there you go.
Another question. It's asking about mentorship opportunities. For example, do you have mentorship opportunities? For example, if I want to do a procedure such as a molar apico under a senior endodontist supervision, is that possible, or is that asking too much, or any sort of resources within the endodontist Aspen Dental world where the endodontists collaborate with one another?
So that sounds like a nightmare to me. But doing a molar apico. I would assume yes. I haven't particularly pursued it. Just my philosophy, you know, it's a little bit different, and it's like we're staring at our work under a microscope all day. I know, you know, at every point how I can be better just by staring at my work underneath a microscope. It might sound dumb, but I mean, I don't think I need anybody to coach me. I can see just real time, basically what the next level of growth is, just about the reps to get there. But yes, there is always continuing education that I get in my email. I'm sorry, I don't take advantage of it very often, but I should. But there's always opportunities. And for me, what I've enjoyed more, honestly, when I got to Aspen, I had worked in a high-end private practice for like 2 years. And so I was very, very, very confident with initial endo, with retreatments, we had a cone beam in private practice. The referring dentist was very good about looking at cracked teeth. So endo I was very solid on, but at Aspen, what I've actually grown with is in restorative and extractions, just by picking the brain of the dentists that I work with, because you know, that's an area where they do know a lot more than me. And so on the restorative and oral surgery end, that's something I always enjoy, just quizzing all the different dentists that I work with. Because in Pennsylvania, I probably worked with 30 different dentists. Here in Arizona, I work with about 15. And so there's a lot for them to offer. And it's like not formal continuing education, but definitely some mentorship and some exchange of ideas.
Great. Those are a lot of good questions on procedures and the clinical autonomy and just how a day of endo unfolds for you. So to our attendees, thank you for all those good questions. We got some more coming in. I guess shifting gears, you know, you mentioned going from office to office logistics. Yeah, I think you said you cover eight offices total. Is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How about just, you know, distances, you know, what is your farthest office, you know, the traveling to the offices, the equipment, that kind of thing, that process, how that all works.
Yeah. So it's just going to depend on the region that you're in and the contract that you're with. So like if you're part-time, then you're probably just going to cover, I don't know, 3-4 offices, and they're probably all going to be close together. If you're full-time in a wonderful city like Phoenix, I have, let's say 7 of the 8 offices are for me within about 30 minutes. My wife has a longer commute, and she works at one office. So she works in public health dentistry, and her commute every day is 45 minutes. Mine is 15 minutes to half an hour, depending on the offices. So right now I'm extremely fortunate. In Pennsylvania, I was running around a little bit more, just because I was covering a bigger territory, essentially. I think I was helping out with probably about 15 offices, something like that. So it was quite a lot of offices, but I mean, that's what I wanted at that point in my life and in my career. And I felt extremely supported when I was doing that. Transportation has always been taken care of very well for me. In Pennsylvania, I was getting excellent reimbursement on mileage. I was offered a company car and declined it because I wanted to run my old car into the ground until it died and collect all the reimbursement for gas miles. So that's a personal choice. And then now in Phoenix, I took the company car, and it's been wonderful. So essentially all costs of transportation have been paid for which is, I mean, that's a very nice luxury. I don't pay for gas. I don't pay for maintenance. I don't pay for literally anything. So that's pretty cool. Then when I was in Pennsylvania and I was traveling more, when appropriate, they would put me up in hotels. Like if I was maybe over an hour and a half outside of my geographic location, no questions asked, hotels. With my partnership with Aspen and my, the nature that I got from my dad, I earned the Southwest Companion Pass for credit card points in about a month from the hotel nights in Pennsylvania. So I was pretty pleased about that.
You're using them right now in Orlando, maybe. Who knows?
I did, actually. That's how I got here. Well, that's how my wife got here.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like it's great. The company vehicle to transport around the Phoenix Valley. How about just staying in the logistics and equipment, and how is sterilization handling? If you're traveling with the instruments and equipment, and let's talk about the all-important dental assistants too, the endo trained assistants. Talk a little bit about your assistants as far as the quantity that you have, and are they with you the whole day? Are you sharing them with the GP along with the all important instruments and sterilization?
That's a great question. So each office has sterilization, and you are at this point asking me something that's a little bit outside exactly what I know. I'm doing root canals all day. I see that I have sterilized instruments all day. As far as I know, as the day goes, they're using the sterilizers of the offices, and then end of day, depending on what the office, depending on what the day's like, they'll either stay for the last cycle. Sometimes they get bagged and then sterilized at the new office, as far as I know. But it's always easy. It's never a problem. Thing is, when they come in, like when we come in, the offices are very happy to have us there because we do a really good service for the offices. The specialists do. We tend to have, like as a whole, the specialists tend to have very good patient experiences. So, I mean, it makes the offices look good. We tend to make a ton of money those days. So they're happy to see us. And so anytime I've been in an office, they've been very happy to help out. So if we need help with sterilization, okay. Or if my assistant is tied up and I need an x-ray, I'll walk out to the front desk, tell the office manager, hey, I need an x-ray. And they'll find one of the DAs for the office to take an x-ray. I bum equipment off the offices all the time. I don't want to travel with everything. And so, I'll tell my assistants, go grab a hemostat from the office or go grab forceps when I'm the endodontist doing extractions. So it's a very collaborative environment. As far as the DA, I've had excellent DAs, both in Pennsylvania and out here in Arizona. And I've said that a couple times, like the Pennsylvania and Arizona thing. That's because my wife got a job in Arizona, her dream job. And when we were figuring that out, when we were in Pennsylvania, one of the things that mattered to me was to transfer with Aspen. I mean, because I was having such a good time. So, we're doing this question and answer session, but I like the company and my experience enough to essentially move with them. But back to the DA question, I had an excellent dental assistant in Pennsylvania. He to date is the only assistant I've ever worked with that could take x-rays better than me, which was humbling. When I figured out that if he couldn't get what I wanted to see, I couldn't get it either. It was a hard day when I figured that out. But he'd been involved as an endo-only assistant for about 15 years. So he was good. And it was really cool to work with him because he knew how 4 or 5 other endodontists would work. And it was a very intelligent guy. And I would say, how'd the last guy do it? Okay, well, how'd the guy before do it? Or the guy before that? And I mean, it's very cool when you're younger in your career to know, to be able to ask somebody who you go to work with every day, and it's like a very casual environment, and to be able to ask him and pick his brain. I mean, I learned a lot from him. And then out in Phoenix, again, I've had great dental assistants. In general, I feel like the dental assistants and office managers and front office at Aspen, in my experience, tend to work harder than those that I've found in private practice. I think we do a better job of finding talent and retaining talent and incentivizing employees to motivate them, which is great. I mean, it at the end of the day just makes the team stronger.
Yeah, retention of dental assistants, I think we all know, is a major challenge in the dental industry as a whole right now. So the fact that you've got loyal, committed endo assistants, trained assistants there to support you is huge. It makes your day easier, I would imagine, and efficient and whatnot. So
well, so I only worked in one private practice, but I have lots of friends who have had very similar experiences in theirs. I've heard a lot of more or less nightmare stories. When I was in private practice, none of the people that I worked with had essentially any form of benefits at all, which is like fair-ish for an endodontist associate who's doing really well financially. But for like a dental assistant in that practice, the lack of benefits compared to having benefits at a company like Aspen, I think that's one of the reasons why we're able to, like we're talking about, attract and retain talent, which is really cool.
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's competitive out there. We heard those DAs were competing with, Uber and other places for jobs. So yeah, the benefits are key, very key. Dr. Singh, you mentioned benefits, and you were talking, I think a little bit about, you were talking about the assistants specifically, but I think it's a good segue. And with roughly 20 minutes left in our Ask Me Anything session, let's talk a little bit about benefits for you as an endodontist, and see where that takes us. See if we get any questions specifically from the group on benefits. But yeah, just if you would just talk a little bit about your benefits package, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I would say it's a strong one. I would say like maybe B plus, A minus. I'm super picky in all aspects of life, so I could always tell you how it could be better. But it's very strong. I mean, like the fact that like I would have to consider the company car that has everything paid for as a benefit. I think I'd be a little crazy not to. I get good, cheap medical insurance, which depending on your situation, that might be worth $5,000 or $6,000 a year, if not more. Vision, dental. I think it's unlikely I'll ever use a dental plan in my life, but I could go out of network and to a different office, but I do get all my treatment free from friends. But so we get the dental, good 401k with matching. So I mean, it's pretty standard. I'm trying to think if there's any glaring omissions.
Malpractice insurance.
Yes, malpractice insurance totally covered. That's free. I get free malpractice insurance. Disability insurance, I believe that if I wanted to, I could get it through Aspen. Like I said, I'm very picky. With disability insurance, I've always heard that, as far as I know that this is correct, that if you get it through your employer, if you ever were to become disabled, the benefits you receive, you will be taxed on, versus if you do it on your own, the benefits you receive will be tax-free. So I haven't pursued it getting it through Aspen for that reason. But it's something that's there. As endodontists, you do find yourself in those situations where, you may see a good option through work, but unfortunately there may be a better option outside of work and some things like that, like the disability insurance. But, that's a good problem to have. So.
Yeah. Question that's come in, and understandably so, residents are might have some bills to pay and are looking to start working and earning some money while providing great clinical care.
Sounds reasonable.
Talking about compensation, and obviously, Doc, not asking you to disclose what you're making, but average daily production, an average day, those type of any information you want to share there, and we can see where that goes.
Yeah. So I would say I'm not going to really get into average daily production, because I don't think, when I was in residency, I had no idea what the heck average daily production meant. I mean, like in real terms. For me, what matters as an endodontist is what I'm being compensated per case. If I were ever in a situation where I was consistently being compensated, where we were billing $500 for molar endo consistently, I would be extremely upset. I would say at Aspen, my average billed and collected per case is probably about $1,000, maybe $1,100, something like that. That's including anteriors and premolars and all the various insurance plans. That's the number at the end of the day that matters to me, because I do great work and I want to charge for great work, because I see a lot of bad work out there, and they charge for that too. So when that's one of the things that's important to me, basically. And I did not really notice a drop off when I left private practice, and I was working at a high end private practice, in terms of how I was being compensated on a per case basis, which is really exciting to me for several reasons. I mean, Aspen does a much better job of filling my schedule. So I'm able to see more patients, and I'm not losing anything on a per case basis. So that is something that you really have to look at. The cases also are so much easier at Aspen. Very straightforward stuff. In where the situation that I'm at now, I work with 8 offices and probably about 15 dentists who send me the majority of their endo. There's so much easy endo. I would say about 1 in 20 cases makes me work. The other 19, it's just so easy. When you're in private practice outside, you may have literally 200-300 dentists sending you cases, and they're sending you the stuff they don't want and the head scratchers. So, if you start to look at it here and there, it's much easier to get into a role and really be more productive financially. As far as numbers that matter, what matters at the end of the day is how much you make at the end of the year, and average daily production. That's very, very abstract for somebody in residency, and then what you make after taxes, because that's how you start to figure out what you're going to be able to do in terms of paying back student loans and making actual financial progress. When I left residency, I probably walked into doing about $300,000 a year, like day one. Like that was my pace in private practice. Yeah, now it's probably $500,000 after 4 years of experience and switching to Aspen. That's kind of where I'm sitting at right now, which is like extremely normal for an endodontist. I would say, in my opinion, the cap here, working in a situation like Aspen, is like maybe $700,000 or $800,000. Hard to say. Everybody practices differently. I'm sure somebody out there can tell me that in this model that they can make $1 million, and that's fine. Maybe they can. You can, for sure, make more if you start your own high-end bougie endodontic practice that you own, because simply instead of being paid at the end of the day about 50% of what you produce, if you're an owner, you can maybe take home about 70%, 75%. I mean, that sounds great, and it is great, but there's a whole lot of strings attached with that. You'll get a lot of very, very, very difficult cases, and it's a long road to doing that. And then you do find that you're absolutely married to that practice. Like, if you own one of those kind of practices and somebody needs a root canal on Christmas, they're getting a root canal on Christmas. I would be in another country most years. So, like, they're not going to get a root canal from me. I mean, those are some ballpark.
And there's oftentimes
Yeah.
And there's oftentimes a lot of competition in those endo practices, those privates that you were describing. A ton of competition.
Yeah, for sure.
Another question here: molars. How many molars versus anterior teeth on any given day?
I would say mostly molars, but it's a good mix. Like, I would say that's a really hard question. There are the stats somewhere, that would tell me that answer. I would say it's about 3.5, 4 molars, 1 or 2 anteriors or premolars a piece. So, like, maybe for like a typical day, it sounds like maybe like 4 or 5 molars, like an anterior premolar, maybe 2 anteriors a premolar. It's a pretty good mix. I mean, but like you get to the point where a molar is just as easy as anything else. So, you know, it probably, like when you break it down after you do this a million times, you give somebody 15 minutes of numbing time, or however much numbing time you want to give. You talk to them, you do informed consent. Once you actually put a burr on the tooth, it might take you an extra 10 minutes to do a molar versus doing an anterior premolar. So molars definitely don't bother me. Like I could do it all molars till the end of time, and that's fine.
Yeah, okay, great. And you know, you had mentioned that the staff loves seeing you come in, you and the whole endo team and the assistants taking care of the patients. You're getting them out of pain. You're providing a great service to those patients. They're able to get their dentistry done in one place, which is we've learned is a huge benefit versus going to an outside
Yeah.
place for their root canal patients. We've learned through research, and you know, they want to go to a place that they're comfortable with and familiar. So yeah, you know, couple questions, last questions here, last couple minutes that are coming in. And if there's anything that you want to talk about specifically, Dr. Snee, feel free. But I had a couple questions about COVID. Just how have you seen the practice change, you know, during COVID, and now that we're coming out, or I won't say, well, no, we're not coming out of COVID, obviously, but from once we first started getting into COVID to today, if you wouldn't mind talking about that, the equipment that Aspen Dental Management has provided you to keep yourself safe and your patients safe.
Yeah, that's a great one. So I think that their response has been amazing, and you know, it's just reaffirmed that this is the right spot for me. That I'm just so incredibly happy to be here and to be working as part of this team. So we had 2 slow months in March and April. I can't remember if it was March and April or April and May, but we had 2 slow months where kind of the whole world went to a standstill and we were trying to figure out what to do. You know, all dental offices everywhere were doing that. Some states had pretty much completely shut down dental offices. But, you know, there were hundreds of decisions, probably thousands of decisions that needed to be made in regard to COVID. And as they were occurring in the company, you know, I felt that there were good decisions being made consistently. As I said a million times, I said a couple times, I'm very picky. So I don't think all decisions are good decisions. And I felt like that the corporation and management and higher ups in the team was consistently making really good decisions. They were also communicating those decisions with us as providers. For a couple weeks, I would have a weekly call with all of the specialists and the high level management in the company. And they would basically kind of just walk through, these are the updates for the week. These are the ideas. This is where we're headed. And so, you know, I really respected that, and I thought that was great. Logistically, I mean, if you think about it, we're just able to handle situations like that just better than private practice. You know, I heard that when the loans for employees, like the Paycheck Protection loans, Aspen was all over that because we are an enormous company and we have a big legal team. You know, the private practice down the street that has the lawyer they call sometimes, like that doesn't compete with a dedicated legal team. So I know that some of the private practices out there had trouble acquiring those loans. So like that's one example. I know that when necessary, when everything got completely shut down and some people weren't working for a period of time, that Aspen prioritized keeping benefits active for the people that weren't working. So a lot of good decisions from the business standpoint, but also in terms of taking care of employees. So I was really impressed. I've been impressed. I walk downstairs in my apartment complex sometimes, and I have packages that I didn't order, and I open it up, and it's N95 masks. Aspen has sent me boxes of N95 masks probably, I don't know, eight times since this stuff got started. Whatever we need, we order. But there's also been stuff like dropped off at my house for me. And kind of similar to the legal aspect of it, when I was talking about getting the Paycheck Protection Program stuff, we do have a team that kind of goes over and sets policies and procedures. And one of the things, like, I joke about with my owners or the regional teams, is that they let somebody make the decision who's smarter than me. I know Endo, but I don't know the absolute best way to set up a practice to minimize the effects of an emerging virus. If we can have a team sit down and work on that for a week, they're going to come up with a better result than what one endodontist thinks. So across the board, the COVID response has been excellent.
Great. Finally, we're just down to a couple minutes. Any suggestions, thoughts for our residents in attendance tonight, for just things to mull over, to think about as they're weighing their first job after residency?
Put the special in specialist. And I mean, it truly is like, dentistry in general, and endo specifically, is about wanting to do what's well for patients and wanting to get better. If you only do those two things every day, you're going to become just a phenomenal clinician, and you'll be compensated stupidly for it. That's it. I mean, always do what's best for people, because what's best for them is always what's best for you. And just trying to get better. And one of the nice things about endo is it's very easy to know how to get better. We're looking through a microscope. We're always taking check films. We're always taking post-op films. It's not like that class 2 composite that you do and then you don't take a post-op film. We take post-op films of everything that we do. As long as you care, you will get better. I found that I get better on a monthly basis, and it's so fun to be 4 years out and still thinking, yeah, I'm better this month than I was last month. I talk about it with my wife, like, the patient that gets me next month, unfortunately, gets a better doctor than the one that got me this month. And that's what it's all about. And like I said, you'll be, if you do that, you'll be very happy. You'll be very successful financially. That's it.
All right. Well, on behalf of everyone at Aspen Dental Management Inc., thank you, Dr. Snee. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you to all our participants, residents out there, whether if you're an existing endodontist. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We appreciate it. Any last words, Dr. Snee? I want to give you the mic before we
Nah.
No?
No, I gave my wisdom. That's all the wisdom I have.
He wants to go meet the Incredible Hulk now.
Yeah.
It's in Universal.
That's right. Well, again, thank you, everyone who took a little time out of their Friday evening to join us. Any other questions you can, from a non-clinical perspective, Melissa and I can certainly answer, and perhaps Dr. Steve would be happy to answer any clinical questions or anything about, again, a day in the life for an endodontist. And we're here to help you in as you complete your residency and whatnot. So thank you, everyone, for your time, and have a good evening.
Yep.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Take care.